Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Sherman IC Trzyniec, or if you want to read it with an English accent, the Trzyniec, of which is a currently 4.7 BR rank 3 premium vehicle in the Great Britain Grand Tech Tree and is flying under the Polish flag. It also currently costs 2,980 Golden Eagles. In this video, I'll be going over everything that you need to know about it, including its stats, how it plays, its strengths and weaknesses. I'll give it some scores in several key areas, and then I'll give my final recommendation and if I feel if this vehicle is worth purchasing or not. As always, if you don't mind, please consider subscribing if you'd like more content like this, as I greatly appreciate it. But either way, let's get into it. Now to start, I'll place its stat card here on the side of the screen. Things to note are its armor pen, power to weight ratio, and armor thickness. Now for how it plays. The Sherman IC, or 99 Trzyniec, I believe it's 99, I'll just say the IC, translates to Scorpion in English, and is essentially a British Sherman Firefly, except a bit better. It has better armor and, despite this, is around 6 tons lighter than the Tech Tree Firefly, which gives around 10% better power to weight ratio, which means that it is also a bit quicker, again despite having even better armor. Up hills, and even just when considering other similar BR vehicles, like the T-3457, the Scorpion is a little bit slow, again compared to the average vehicle, but it's still among the fastest of the Shermans, which is at least saying something, even if it isn't saying much. Regardless, the main selling point of this vehicle, aside from the fact that it is a premium vehicle, is its very high-powered 17-pounder cannon, which can go through essentially all enemies with ease, almost regardless of their range, angle, and BR. It has up to 190mm of armor pen with its best shell, which means that complete up tier should be doable just based on the cannon alone. This also makes the Scorpion into a competent sniper, which is somewhat aided by decent optics that can go up to 6x zoom, which is fairly good for this BR. Further, because it is somewhat quicker than other Shermans, it should be able to flank, although as a secondary role, as other tanks in the match will flank much quicker than you, especially light tanks and even most T-34s. With this said, though the Scorpion does have additional armor plating on it compared to other Shermans, including 25mm thick plates welded to the front of the hull as well as to the side of the hull, and even has track armor covering a large portion of the vehicle, the Scorpion is not a vehicle that I would bring to the front lines typically, as it will still likely be penned by most enemies, especially in up tiers. Rather, I would play this as a backline support tank, or even as the aforementioned sniper, taking full advantage of its immensely powerful cannon and minimizing its somewhat mediocre armor, especially if you angle and cover yourself properly. In these roles, especially in a down tier, you can outrange most enemies and should be able to earn numerous kills per match with consistency, especially if you find a good sniping spot. Now with all that said, let's get into its strengths and weaknesses, and first for strengths. It has an excellent cannon that can shoot through upwards of 190mm of armor, which is more than enough to deal with enemies even in complete up tiers. Second, while not a fast tank, this variant of the Firefly is currently among the quickest Shermans in game. For its third strength, it features a good amount of fairly useful add-on armor to improve the otherwise lackluster Sherman hull armor. Further, unique to this variant, there are 25mm thick plates welded onto the Scorpion on the front and side, increasing armor even further. And despite all this extra armor, it actually weighs less again compared to most other Shermans. And of course, this extra armor will help to defeat autocannons. For its fourth strength, it features both smoke grenades and smoke shells. Fifth, it has a top-mounted HMG that can dispatch of both lightly armored vehicles and enemy aircraft. And finally, it features premium RP and SL bonuses. Now for its weaknesses. For its first weakness, while they pen through typically tons of armor, all shells sans the HE shells carried by this tank are solid shot and don't explode inside the crew cabin. And of course, the HE shells are literally just HE, they are not APHE, which means that they will explode outside of the vehicle and are practically useless unless used against the lightest vehicles. For its second weakness, while typical of this BR, the Firefly lacks the stabilizer found on the American variants of the Sherman, as well as on the 75mm equipped versions that you find in other tech trees. For its third weakness, this features an absolutely huge engine that will get destroyed very easily, but at least it protects the crew, and as of current, this vehicle lacks a radiator, which should mean that fewer errant shots will destroy mobility components. Also, Also, on a side note, this engine is not the same as the other engines that you might find on other Shermans, including the regular tech tree Firefly, and typically isn't as good going up a hill. Otherwise, it is still very, very good. And of course, again, this has a better power to weight ratio than your main Firefly. Now, for its fourth weakness, as with any other Sherman, this vehicle has a tall profile, making it very easy to spot and hit. And finally, speaking of, if you are hit, you likely won't survive, at least in up tiers, as both the add-on armor and stock armor combined do not stop most big gunned enemies. Now, with all that being said, let's get into how I score this vehicle. For armament, and this one might be a little bit controversial, but I like the score, I give it an 8 out of 10. While not perfect, the Scorpion has the fantastic 17-pounder from the British that can punch through up to 190 millimeters of armor, which is enough to take out anything that it will fight and then some. This is truly an impressive armament, and the only thing that I'm taking away points for is its ammo. While it does pen very well, it lacks versatility and will sometimes overpen light enemies. Further, there are no APHE options that can limit post-pen damage. Otherwise, this is easily one of the best armaments at its BR and even above. Now for mobility, again, a little bit of a controversial score here, but I'll give it a 5.25 out of 10. Sure, this is a fairly average score, but compared to the other Firefly in the British Ground Tech Tree, the Scorpion is fairly quick. Boasting a somewhat average 12.7 horsepower per ton, it still beats the meandering Firefly by about 10% in this category. While the Scorpion isn't fast enough to truly be a threat to cap the first base in a match, it can still do pretty much everything that you need it to do, including flanking, occasional base capping, running to hot spots, and more. It isn't pretty, but the mobility on this vehicle, for the most part, gets the job done. Now for survivability, I give it a 3.75 out of 10. While you can survive a fair amount of shots from enemy tanks, especially when angled properly, at a range, and doubly so when in a down tier, the survivability on just about any Sherman outside of the jumbos is questionable. Thankfully, this premium Firefly variant has surprisingly large amounts of 25mm thick armor plates, covering both the sides and the front of the hull, which provide actually a pretty decent amount of additional armor, as well as a large amount of track armor on top of all of that. While this still doesn't provide a ton of survivability, I would say that survivability is definitely superior to all of the big gun Sherman variants, sans the jumbo with the 76mm cannon, even if only by a small amount. Now overall, I'll give this a 6.5 out of 10. Though this is still very obviously a Sherman, and comes with all the strengths and the weaknesses that you can expect from that design, the Scorpion is among the best, at least relative to BR. While it doesn't receive any APHE ammunition, nor does it receive a stabilizer, this vehicle can easily wipe the floor with the enemy, be it in a down tier or an up tier, as its cannon can pen essentially all enemies that it will come across. While it has average-ish mobility, it is still superior to what is on the other big gun Shermans, including both the Firefly and the big gun 76mm American Sherman, even if just slightly in some instances. Much the same can be said about the armor, as it is better than what the other Shermans have, but still is a little bit substandard compared to other tank types at and around this BR. Regardless, this is an overall very competent package and is among the best that the Sherman family tree has to offer. Again, at least relative to BR. Now with all that said, for my final recommendation, do I recommend this vehicle? Yes, and then some. Unless you're putting yourself in an open firing line, you should be able to get numerous kills per match with ease with this vehicle. Further, the Scorpion has just enough armor that smart vehicle placement and angling can allow you to survive more shots than you think. The best part is that this is a rank 3 premium and only costs 2,980 Golden Eagles, which is give or take between around $16 and $20 USD. Among comparable vehicles in this tier, the Scorpion definitely makes a case for not only being among the best and most capable, but is also quite possibly the best bargain, especially when on sale. So yes, I fully recommend this premium Sherman Firefly and give it my Tankenstein seal of approval. This vehicle is one of the most pleasant discoveries I've made in Warthunder, as it just keeps getting better the more that you play it, and the more that you compare it to other Shermans. If grinding the British Ground Tech Tree, this is a must-buy vehicle if you're in the market for a mid-tier premium, especially if the Scorpion is on sale. Now with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below. Also, if you don't mind, please consider liking this video as well as subscribing to my channel for future content, especially if you like this sort of thing. But either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.